The news, if you will, just before we started Zooming with one another here, Chris, um, is that Bill Belichick was nominated for Outstanding Studio Analyst Personality for the Sports Emmy Awards in 2019. Thus,
What?
yes, Bill Belichick, Mr. Yes,
On to
no,
Cincinnati. Yeah.
on to Cincinnati, Mr. One Word Answer, Mr. Just mumbling to the press. Our guy, Bill Belichick, was nominated for a television sports Emmy for his work on the NFL 100 All-Time Team Show. And now I knew that they put his tape up for
Okay.
view. I was not allowed to essentially say that because this needed to be kind of under the radar, because that's just the way things that I think the way that Bill wants it. But I can tell you, it was placed before him. Would you be fine if we put this tape in for
So
you?
Bill had final say on if he got actually nominated?
Does this surprise you?
Well, no, but I mean, everyone saw what he did on that show and how
Right.
tremendous he
Well, they
was.
weren't just going to make a reel for him. I have no idea if he personally edited the reel or looked at it. That I have no idea. But it was definitely NFL Films did ask him, is it cool if we do it? It wasn't his idea. NFL Films, as you know, has
Right.
sports Emmys everywhere. As a matter of fact, if you just go in the Jones Mahal, in the Sable Mahal, Jones Mahal is a Dallas Cowboys facility. The Steve Sable Mahal, this beautiful facility that they built in Mount Laurel, New Jersey, there's Emmys everywhere. As a matter of fact, there was a moment that Belichick and I shared. I may have told this story on the air before, but there was a makeshift photography studio that they put together for publicity headshots for me and Bill and and also Collinsworth and everybody else that came through. And what that was basically this kind of Sears, if you will, photograph background,
Oh, yeah.
backdrop that they hung from a wall in a small kitchenette off to the side of a dining area. And it was the size of a large closet. And, so we're standing there taking pictures, and behind the photographer is a sink and cabinetry, where I guess they keep the forks and knives and plates. I have no idea. And Belichick and I are standing there taking a 2-shot photograph of just me and the modern day Lombardi saying cheese. And Belichick points to the top of the cabinets, literally all the way on top of the cabinets where people might keep, like sugar in your household. And on top of the cabinets were 2 Emmy Awards just standing up there.
Just randomly in the kitchen.
Up there. And Belichick,
like they had no other place to put them.
Belichick nudges me with an elbow. He points to them and he goes, "Look at that right there. You know what? That's just, I guess they don't have enough places to keep their sports Emmys,
Oh my gosh.
So truly amazing." All right, let me pause this for a second because somebody's coming in. So the whole experience with Bill was amazing, as you know, and he is deserving of this nomination. I mean, I have
for sure
many analysts in my day, and I understand that this may be shocking, or maybe people think it's just a kind of, and this may be why he didn't want it to be known. I have no idea that he was put in for it. That is not a novelty. This is really somebody whose work that was well executed and well prepared and added to a broadcast and lifted the broadcast as a whole. This is what analysts are asked to do, tasked to do. And this is what analysts who are nominated are lauded for. And I've told you the many stories about how Bill would just off the cuff tell remarkable memory stories, and also add perspective to conversations and have some fun, which he did with Mean Joe Green when Joe Green came out, and I was prepared to ask him about, the Steel Curtain defense or Chuck Noll or anything of that nature. And Belichick jumps in and says, "Can I ask a question?" And I'm sitting there as the host, like, "Floor is yours, Bill." And the first question he asked him about was his Coke commercial from the 70s about flipping the towel to the kid, or flipping his jersey to the kid. "Hey, kid, catch." And I'm like, did Belichick just go pop culture with the first question to Joe Green? Like, did that actually just happen? And that loosened up the segment, which is, again, what an analyst is occasionally asked to do, or does when he or she is comfortable in the moment. And he was dynamite, just in terms of being able to talk about players in the current day to players that he was the defensive coordinator against in the 80s and the 90s for Parcells, or in the early 80s when he was a position coach for Parcells, or in the 70s when he was with Ted Marchibroda, and in the 60s and 70s with his dad being exposed to somebody like Roger Staubach, or when he was in the Baltimore Colts Johnny Unitas football camp, as he made a mention about not catching passes from Johnny, but because he was his team's center, he snapped the ball to Johnny Unitas. I mean, and then, so we're talking 50s all the way to the current day, that he as an analyst is able to cover expertly as a fan, as a kid fan, as an adolescent fan, as a college kid, exposed through his dad, the coach in the Mid-Atlantic at Navy, and then also what he did in the NFL. But the 30s and 40s players that made this team, that were put into the show, into the piece, because through his telestrating, because we put him on the Bellustrator, so he was able with his coach's clicker to go through the grainy footage of these players. Those were the ones that we had a big blind spot on, in terms of how do we highlight these guys. And certainly we knew it would be controversial if these guys made it over more contemporary players, and that did turn out to be the case. He came so prepared at one point, Chris, I haven't told this story yet. At one point, it was the only point in the recording of this program where he stopped down, to use the phrase, in the television phrase. When you stop down is when you're taping something and somebody says, "Let's stop. Hold on a second. There was a screw up," or somebody, walked in the background of the frame, or there was something wrong, mechanically with a camera or anything, focus. Let's stop down. There was only one time that Bill stopped himself down, and that was because he didn't get a fact straight, or there was a sentence that he didn't say the way that he wanted to say it. And I thought to myself, because he's been speaking off the top of his head this entire time. He then picked up notes that he had printed out, stapled at the top, pages and pages of notes of all of these players that he was going through the Bellustrator with.
Wow.
And he had them this entire time. This was like the middle of the shoot. We had been around each other for almost a full day. And I had no idea that he was using in his lap or right in front of him these notes. He had prepared the entire thing, and on occasion would talk off the top of his head, but then refer to these notes in a way that I didn't even notice he was doing. And I've been in this business for like 20 some odd years.
Yeah.
It was amazing.
Wow.
We were like looking at each other like, has he had notes the whole time? Is that what it is? And then it's just like he prepared for these guys that we had no idea about because they've been gone for so long, and he knew all about them. He deserves the nomination, and it's not a novelty. That's a fact.
Well, two things. First off, you know that he's going to win, right? With all due respect to Charles Barkley and Al Leiter and Kenny Smith, Michael Strahan, and Jay Billis, Bill Belichick is going to win. So do you think that he is going to thank you in his acceptance speech?
I don't. First of all, here's two things: is the Emmy Award ceremony has been, I believe, either postponed or canceled. I don't know what the proper word is for it.
Oh yeah, you're probably right.
But when the announcements are made, I proffer to say that each winner will be asked, I'm sure, by the Emmy committee to record a thank you speech or whatever.
Right.
So
okay, so how about this?
Well, he's been very generous. He's been very generous, as you know, when he talks about this experience. Yeah. He does mention pretty much everybody who's involved in the broadcast.
Yeah. Okay. So he has 8 rings as his boat in Nantucket. Do you think the boat gets changed to 1 Emmy?
Or 8 rings, 1 Emmy.
Yeah, or just like an addition. He just adds like the plus Emmy at the end.
Right? Or like all wheels, no brakes, right?
Yeah, exactly.
8 rings, 1 Emmy. We'll see.
He gets T-shirts made and a hat.
Get the paint job ready.